Hello everyone! Welcome to the very first video on my channel, HistoricThink. Today, we're diving into a fascinating question. Why do empires fall? Do they all follow the same pattern? Or is it just coincidence? Let's break it down. You've probably heard the saying, history repeats itself. But is that really true? In today's video, we're diving deep into the collapse of three major empires to find out. And we'll start with the fall of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was one of the most powerful civilizations in history, but by 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire had collapsed. So, what went wrong? Behind this question lies no simple answer. The fall of the Roman Empire was caused by multiple factors, both internal and external. Political instability, economic decline, military overspending, social issues, and pressure from migrating barbarian tribes all played a role. But for me, the most important were political instability and economic decline, largely driven by military overspending. Constant warfare and the enormous costs associated with it stretched the empire's resources thin, weakening the state and contributing significantly to its downfall. A large portion of the Roman Empire's revenue was funneled into maintaining a vast and expensive army. Some estimates suggest that around 80% of the imperial budget in the 2nd century CE was spent on the military alone. This heavy military spending, combined with other financial strains like infrastructure projects and welfare programs, placed a huge burden on the Roman economy. So, in conclusion, we can say that the Roman Empire did not fall primarily because of external threats, although they certainly played a role. Instead, the empire collapsed largely from within, due to political instability, economic decline, overspending on the military, and the challenge of defending an overstretched territory. It wasn't just the enemies at the gates that brought Rome down. It was the weight of its own unsustainable system. The next empire we'll cover in this video is the fall of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, an empire that during its golden age refused to send ambassadors to other parts of the world, saying, "We don't need ambassadors. One day we'll rule those territories." Yet, over time, it became mocked and ridiculed by European powers, who labeled it the sick man of Europe. Let's find out what truly led to the collapse of this once great empire and how it all happened. Multiple factors contributed to the collapse of the Ottoman Empire in 1922. Among the most significant were its outdated feudal system, which offered no room for reform or transformation into the modern structures emerging in the 19th century in countries like France, Great Britain, or Russia. Another major factor was the Eastern Crisis, the rise of independence movements in the Balkans, which further weakened the empire. During this period, several Balkan countries gained independence: Greece in 1821, Serbia and Montenegro in 1878, Romania in 1881, and Bulgaria in 1908. The annexation crisis, during which Austria-Hungary annexed Bosnia, worsened the situation further. After the First Balkan War in 1912, the Ottomans lost almost all influence over the Balkan Peninsula. Later, the empire chose to side with the Central Powers in the Great War, better known as World War I, hoping to regain its Balkan territories. But that war was lost, which only deepened the crisis and led to the empire's inevitable fall. In addition to military defeats in the Balkan and World Wars, the Ottoman Empire faced internal problems like financial collapse, political instability, and a lack of strong leadership. These were key reasons behind the fall and the eventual abolition of the Sultanate. The Sultanate also failed to show strength during the Greco-Turkish War, 1919 to 1922. However, despite the end of the Ottoman Empire, Turkey survived and rose as a modern state, thanks to the nationalist movement led by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who abolished the Sultanate and established the Republic of Turkey in its place. Once the symbol of global communist power, the USSR, an empire that rivaled the West in ideology, industry, and influence, collapsed. But how does a superpower fall? Was it the economy, the politics, or perhaps something deeper that brought the mighty Soviet Union to its knees? While researching this topic, I realized that the main reason most empires collapse is excessive military spending. No global power or empire has ever truly fallen because of an external war with another country, but rather because of its own internal decisions, whether that's an outdated system, like in the case of the Ottoman Empire, or poor financial management. In my view, the main reason for the fall of the Soviet Union wasn't communism as an ideology, Stalin's death, or even perestroika. It was the Cold War arms race, a relentless competition over who could build more weapons, who had the stronger nuclear arsenal, and who would dominate space exploration. As George Orwell once said, "The Russian regime will either democratize itself or it will perish." The US had a clever strategy. They didn't need to go to war with the Soviets. They simply kept the race going. And eventually, the USSR collapsed under its own weight because its pockets weren't as deep as America's. While the Soviet government was obsessed with winning the Cold War, the everyday citizen was suffering. So, in closing, my message is this: there is a pattern to how great empires fall: internal self-destruction. Because no global power has ever truly fallen in war, but rather in peace, when it could no longer govern itself due to its overwhelming size and inner weakness. Throughout history, empires haven't crumbled from a single battle or a mighty enemy, but from within. Whether it was Rome, the Ottomans, or the Soviet Union, the pattern is clear: overreach, internal decay, and the inability to adapt. These stories aren't just echoes of the past, they are warnings. If history teaches us anything, it's this: no power is too great to fall if it stops listening, evolving, or caring for its people. Thank you for watching. This is HistoricThink, where we look back to understand what lies ahead.